that this is actually not very surprising. This is the 10th round of cooling measures. The way that tax was levied on the buyers is actually no different from the previous rounds. You can see that during this pandemic, actually the property prices continue to do very well in Singapore. So around middle of this year, you can see that there will be a lot of talks about the wealth tax, basically to try to cool the property market. But what's surprising is the wealth tax is actually missing in these whole property cooling measures. And from what I see here is that this time around, I think the impact will be slightly more muted compared to the 9th round of cooling measures, because people just get used to this upfront acquisition tax, which is no different between whether it's 25% or 30%. So to a lot of these buyers, especially those buyers who are wealth-backed purchasers, you can see that the property cooling measures don't really affect them.
They don't really affect them. And so what happens to the property sector? I mean, how strong is demand looking to you? And how much would raising the stamp duty move the needle in terms of people reconsidering buying homes?
I think it probably affects people in terms of say upgraders, where they really needed the bridging loan to actually make the purchases to the next property. It doesn't really affect the higher end of the property market. And from what I see is that there will be a lot of purchases that's gravitating towards decoupling, so that people are still buying under first property, which is not affected by the cooling measures at all. There was some tightening in terms of the total debt servicing ratio. So in the past, people could borrow a bit more from the banks, but now they have to cut back by about 5%. So really doesn't really move the needle, and we think that property prices will continue the momentum that we saw in 2021, in 2022. So price-wise, there will be some pullback in terms of the transaction volume, and maybe some correction in the not so well-located properties in Singapore in the first half of the year. But second half, we do see that because of the supply crunch that we continue to see in the market, and also because of the en-bloc sales, which probably will slow down, and that will deter developers from buying more apartments on bulk and to redevelop. So on the property, in terms of the supply front, we are seeing a pullback, and that will actually cause property prices to stabilize or to rise in the second half of next year.